Hiya, I know it's unusual for me to appear on camera. I don't really like coming on camera for various reasons. And I think I'm a bit of an introvert as well. However, I do get a lot of questions both on social media and on the YouTube channel about character inspiration. It's something I get so often, I thought it was best to come on camera and talk about it. Because when you talk about character inspiration and where a writer gets inspiration from, there isn't just one clear-cut answer. You don't do something to get inspiration. So the question is, where do I normally get character inspiration? And my very vague response is everywhere and anywhere. And when I say everywhere and anywhere, I mean everywhere and anywhere. I get inspiration whenever I'm out and about. I get inspiration when I'm on the buses, on public transport, when I'm coming out of a building, when I am, say, buying a donut in a donut shop or buying a coffee. And when we talk about character inspiration, it's not just one thing or one person that inspires a character. It could be the smell of fragrance, maybe a leaf blowing from a tree or falling from a tree. It's these types of little things that bring character inspiration. Now, I'm going to talk about one of my characters from this series. That's my Heathens series. It's the first book in the series. There is a prequel, but there is a first book after the prequel. So the prequel is online, it's free, and then there is the first book in the series. Now, in the first book in the series, there's a character called Una, and I love the name because it's a Celtic, it's an Irish name. And I knew someone who lived in England called Una, and I just thought it was a fascinating name. And this character, I gave her the name Una. Where did I get the inspiration for Una? Interestingly, I was on a bus in London about 15 years ago, sitting on the bus, and these group of teenage girls came on. And there were a mixed group of, some were white, some were black. But there was this girl, she was very pale skin, almost reddish hair. I would say almost ginger hair. And she came on with this group of girls, and they were very tough. I think they were trying to be tough, bless them. But they came on the bus, and there was a huge pack of them. And there was a fear that you could feel running through the bus, because people were like, oh, what's going to happen? And this girl came on the bus, and I'll never forget, she looked me right in the eye. She looked me directly at me, and it was almost like she was staring into my soul. I felt terrified, but I stood my ground, and I just sat there, looked back at her, and then kept on with what I was doing. But I was showing I wasn't afraid of her. But I remember her because she was very striking to look at. She had her hair pulled back, some would say in a Croydon ponytail. And although she was supposed to be fearsome and part of this little girl gang, I found her quite fascinating to look at, because underneath all that bravado and anger was just this striking person who I think was actually quite fearful of the world, and more fearful of the world than the world was of her, if you understand what I mean. And I just found her extremely fascinating to look at. And I just put her in my memory bank, and I never quite thought she was there somewhere, but I never had a character that would... And she wasn't meant to be a character at the time. She was just a girl I'd seen on a bus in London. And then I was putting... Obviously, I had a long list of characters for the series. And I thought, I want a troubled girl. Someone troubled, someone slightly angry at the world, but someone who has been done very wrong. Sorry, my battery was getting low. Someone who has been done very wrong by society. Maybe she's been failed by her parents, she's been failed by the system, but at the same time, she's a budding witch, which makes her rather dangerous to deal with. And I wrote this entire scene with this group of girls where something goes wrong, and it emerges at that time that she's actually a witch. And I wrote this entire scene, and I'll never forget, oh my goodness, that girl on the bus. She would be perfect in this role, you know, and I just pictured her. I pictured her in the books with darker hair for some reason, not the same color hair, I don't know why, but I pictured her with darker hair, and I wrote her out perfectly, in my opinion. Whilst, you know, she was troubled, she was, you know, angry, but at the same time she was very, very vulnerable. And she was troubled because of her past and because she'd been failed by her parents and by the system. But then she was a risk because Heathens is all about witches and warlocks and witchcraft. She was a risk to her fellow witches and warlocks because she had this darkness within her. So although she was now amongst people like herself, she was still a danger because they never knew what she was going to do next. So the whole point of this is that one glimpse, forgive me, whilst I was talking, I realised I had coffee burning in the background in the kitchen, so my coffee's burnt. So to carry on, apologies for the interruption. That one glimpse of that girl on the bus created an entire character arc, an entire story. So the point is, always leave yourself open to just absorbing everything around you. It doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes you can see something slightly upsetting or something inspirational, but character inspiration doesn't have to be something big and grand. It's not this grand gesture where you see a tall man in a peaked hat with shiny black shoes on and a briefcase. It doesn't have to be anything as elaborate as that. It could be a simple glimpse of a stranger on the street, on public transport. It could be a whiff of coffee. I've walked into coffee shops and a certain smell of coffee has given me ideas for a plot, has given me ideas for a character. That's how writing works. It's not a lightning strike where you just get some big thing. It starts from little ideas that come just from being out and about, from walking around, from just living your life. And that's how you get inspiration, because I always say to people, inspiration's everywhere, but I think you have to be in a relaxed capacity and in a good frame of mind sometimes to recognize it, to accept it, and to welcome it. And that's how I've gotten inspiration for so many characters in the strangest ways. I mean, for each character in each of my books, and I'm talking about every single character, even the minor characters, I have a specific story for how I got the idea for that character. Very, very specific. And hardly any of those stories have to do with family members or people in my life. It's just people I've seen out and about, or things I've seen out and about, or a pair of shoes I've seen outside someone's door, and that's it. Okay, so let me know if you like this format of video, or if you prefer my other formats where I don't appear on video. Some people might prefer that, or some people might prefer a mix of everything. I don't know if this is more boring for people, or more interesting, or just a complete snooze fest. However, do let me know, because the feedback is always welcome. But I can do more of these as well, or I can do less of these. Let me know. Alright, I'll see you in the next video. I have a world building video coming on after this, so do look out for it. Alright, bye.